All right, thank you, Miss Morrison. Blue. Anyone else? Remember, you're selecting a color and then you're going to go ahead and type it in the chat. Okay, green. For persons that are just joining, we're doing the icebreaker. You're supposed to choose a color. So when you choose the color, just go ahead and type it in the chat for me. Choose a color. I just want all the colors to be selected. I'm only seeing red, blue, and green. If you cannot type, you can open your microphone and select a color. That can work as well. All right, so I'm just going to start off with the color that came first, red. So because you selected that color, I have a question. What have you learned that assisted you and is still assisting you on your teaching journey? That question is for the persons that would have selected red. So what have you learned that assisted you and is still assisting you on your teaching journey? Anyone that selected red. So that's between Lacey or Kian. What have you learned that assisted you and is still assisting you on your teaching journey? Feel free to open your microphone to speak.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For me, what I...
Who is me? Because I'm not able to see who is talking.
Perry. From
Kian
Kansas
Perry.
State.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Perry.
Is that you won't be able to fix every situation that arises.
Go again.
I'm having
You're
some
going
internet
in and
issues.
out.
All right. I'm having some internet issues.
Okay.
All right. I was saying that I realized that I am not able to fix every situation that arises in the classroom.
Okay.
Yes. So not every problem that arises, I'm able to fix them. So I try to work around them and do the best that I can to fix what I can fix.
All right. So you're staying within your realm of control, which is good.
Yes.
Which is good. Which is good. Thank you so much, Mrs. Perry. Lacey, would you like to share? Did anyone else select red that did not, that did not type it in the chat that would like to share? Sorry. All right. Let me move on to the next color was blue. So for blue, it's simple. Are you okay? Miss Morrison, are you okay? It's that simple. There's nothing to it. Are you okay? Miss Morrison, are you able to speak? Or anyone else that would have selected blue? The question for blue is, are you okay?
Yes, miss. I am doing okay.
You're doing good. That is good. That is good to hear. Anyone else that would have selected blue? All right, so we're moving to the next color, which is green. Do you have a support system? That would be for Miss Ebanks. Do you have a support system? Do you have someone that you can call on in the event that you're doing something and it's not going the way that you want to or that it should, do you have someone that you can call and bounce off ideas off? Do you have that? Or anyone else that would have selected green? Good morning.
As it relates to my personal life, yes, I have support system, and as it relates to school, I would say yes as well. But sometimes time is an issue. But I do have persons who I can reach out to, but sometimes the time is an issue.
All right. Once you have somebody that you can call, and once you feel it's never the case that you are by yourself, you never feel isolated to the point where you don't have anybody to turn to. Having somebody to call on is always good. And I'm grateful that you have that. So the color that no one selected is yellow. So I'm just going to just throw out the question and anyone can share. What went well last term? Is there anything that went well for you last term?
I'm Mrs. Perry again here.
All right, go ahead, Mrs. Perry.
For me, I have seen an extent of improvement where my children are concerned when it comes on to reading and in most subject areas. And that gives me a sense of saying that all of what I was doing was going to be.
All right, awesome. Is there anyone else that would like to share? While we're at it, before we go any further, please remember to type the school that you're representing in the chat for registration purposes. Thank you. Students are in a meeting as well. No, this session is not for students. Mrs. What? This session is not for students. This session is only for teachers.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
All right, so we're going to be moving on. All right, so the aim of today's session is to empower teachers to enhance students' quantitative and reasoning skills through the effective use of problem-solving strategies. Now, question. What problem-solving strategies have you been using in your classroom? What problem-solving strategies have you been using, if any? Are you currently using any problem-solving strategies? If yes, which one? And how is it going? What problem-solving strategies have you been using?
Trying to, I introduce my students to the three reads.
Okay.
I also use this one that I got from the children's room, the cube, where they would circle the numbers and the units, and they would underline the question, and they would box in. They would do different things with different parts of the worded problem. But some of them, the read, even those who can tend to not want to read the question 3 times.
Okay, so are you outlining the aim for each read, the purpose for each read?
Yes, Miss, because I even have the chart posted in the classroom as well. And I have to be reminding them. So when they're faced with a worded problem, I have to be telling them, remember, you will need to read this particular question 3 times and what to do for the first read, what to do for the second read.
All right, I know that you might be going through the teething pains of it. So what you can do if you will be at grade 6 next year is to try to introduce it to the other teachers. What sometimes happens is that when students get something for the first time, it is going to take some time for them to adjust and get used to using it. So if it is introduced at an earlier stage, it will better assist you when they get to you at grade 6. So in your planning sessions or whatever sessions you have with the other teachers, it is something that you can introduce to the teachers so they can be using it at the different grade levels. So when they get to you, it wouldn't be something so strange to them. They would know. And what you can take into consideration as well, or what you can incorporate, it doesn't just have to be for math. It can be all the areas. So don't just isolate it from math. The different subject areas can utilize it as well. So it is something that can be used right across the board. So if other teachers are using it and they keep on hearing it over and over, we want it to become second nature, but it's not something that will happen overnight. So it's going to take some practice. So the more persons that we have singing the same song will be better for them. Anyone else would like to share?
Sorry again. Trial and error method.
Trial and error.
Yes, please.
All right. How is it going?
In most cases it works because even I say I'm doing a particular topic, specific topic, and my students are weak with division, to be honest, and multiplication too. So I tell them about repeat addition, even though sometimes, to be honest, circles are there, like strokes are there, and numbers. But when they follow the regular routine of multiplication and division, I realize that the concept is still not there. And when they try the other route, it may take long, but I'm having a challenge there with the time frame that they take, yes. But in the end, it is achieved, but it's just the time frame. That's my
Right.
major challenge.
You see, it, as I said before, whatever is being done, if it's not incorporated right across the board, you're going to have some teething pains, especially if this is something new to them. But if it is something that is reinforced across the grades, then it will better assist you. So we can work and see how best we can get this happening across the grade, or ensure that the prerequisites are covered in a particular way that will benefit them when they get to grade 6. All
Well,
right,
that's
so
my
here,
issue. That is my issue. Because it seems like they are crippled at certain level, and I'm just trying to find ways in which to see how best I can help them where possible. That's my challenge.
all right then. All right, so here are some that we are going to be looking at today. So the first one, create a diagram, picture, or model. Guess, check, and revise. Make a table or list. Logical reasoning. Find a pattern, and working backwards. These are just a few that we'll be looking at today. Now, I'm going to be giving you some questions, and you're going to try to determine what strategy would work best with a particular question, with the question given. You can go ahead, if you're not on your phone, that is, you can go ahead and take a picture or just make a note of what strategy you would use based on the question that is here. So the first one, Alice spent 3/4 of her babysitting money on comic books. She is left with $6. How much money did she make from babysitting? The second one, what I want you to do is to just determine which of the strategies. So take a picture of this if you are able to. Are you going to create a diagram? Are you going to guess and check? Are you going to make a table? Are you going to be reasoning logically? Do you need to find a pattern, or will you have to work backwards? The second question, find the common factors of 24, 30, and 18. Other question, Thomas, Helen, Bill, and Mary have cats that are black, brown, white, or gray. The cats' names are Sunny, Lucky, Fifi, and Moo. Sunny is brown. Thomas's cat, Lucky, is not gray. Helen's cat is white, but is not named Moo. The gray cat belongs to Bill. Which cat belongs to each student and what is its color? Now, these are questions that will be sent to you. So you can always pull them and give them to your students, see whatever strategy is used. What you will also want to encourage though is to expose them to different strategies of answering a question. There is not just one way. Not everyone will get the algorithm. Some persons can draw. So whatever it is that you are expecting, ensure that it is something that they were exposed to. Because some of these things, they don't come naturally. This is something that has to be practiced. This is something that has to be modeled. So ensure that students are exposed to it. Do you have a strategy for each? Remember, the focus here is not the answer, you know. The focus here is not the answer. The focus here is how would you approach the question and what strategy would you use? If we're in a face-to-face setting, then we would focus on the answer, but we're here. So I just want you to think about the strategy that you would use based on the six. Which one would you use? Can I go to the other slide?
Roger, Tywin. All right.
All right, here are the other questions. Mom bought a box of candies. Mary took 5 of them. Nick took 4 of them, and 31 were given out on Halloween night. The next morning, they found 8 pieces of candy in the box. How many candy pieces were in the box when Mom bought it? The second one, find 2 numbers that have the sum 11 and product 24. Third, Shannon's Pizzeria made 5 pizzas on Sunday, 10 pizzas on Monday, 20 pizzas on Tuesday, and 40 pizzas on Wednesday. If this pattern continues, how many pizzas will the pizzeria make on Saturday? Remember, the aim is not to get the answer, but to just explore what strategy you would use, based on the question that is given. All right, so here is now the time where we are going to check. So with the first one, Alice spent 3/4 of her babysitting money on comic books. She is left with $6. How much money did she make from babysitting? What do you think? What strategy did you use and why? Anyone, what strategy did you use and why?
Create diagram.
You would create a diagram. Why?
Because it says I'm having some internet issues in the I'm in class. Because it's 3/4, so I could use a circle, cut it up different parts, and then now I'll pull the 3/4, whatever is remaining. That's my tip.
All right, no problem. So creating a diagram is one way that it could be done. Is there any other approach that could have been taken with this question? Because if I'm able to represent 3/4, then if I'm able to distribute, if I'm able to represent 3/4, then I should be able to state then, all right, if 3/4 was spent and she's left with $6, how much was not spent?
Check. I could
we
use
could
get check and revise too.
All right, that is another thing that could be used as well. Remember also that there's not just one strategy that could be used for any particular question. It is one that you are most comfortable with that determines the one that you would select for a particular question. Next. Find the common factors of 24, 30, and 18. Someone else outside of Mrs. Perry, because there are a few other persons on. So please feel free to share. If you're not able to talk, type in the chat. What strategy would you use and why? We have 2 questions on the screen. So what strategy would you use and why? Remember, in order for us to go through this, you have to be participating. It makes no sense I'm here talking to myself. Anyone? Use a Venn diagram. Right. So for this one, we would make a table or a list. So we'll make a table of list because what you're doing is to find the common factors. So you would have to make a table or make a listing because first thing that you need to do is to find the common factors of it. So in order to make the Venn diagram as well, you need to make a list and then you would see where they overlap. So you could find what the common factors are. So making a table would work because you would have to make a table or a list prior to doing the Venn diagram. For the finding 2 numbers now that have the sum 11 and the product 24 is guess or check. It's nothing tricky, it's nothing serious to it. You're just guessing and then checking to see if your answers make sense. So you're thinking about 2 numbers, finding the sum of them, finding the product, and seeing if they meet the criteria. Now for this one, Thomas, Helen, Bill, and Mary have cats that are black, brown, white, or gray. The cats' names are Sunny, Lucky, Fifi, and Moo. Sunny is brown. Thomas's cat, Lucky, is not gray. Helen's cat is white but is not named Moo. The gray cat belongs to Bill. Which cat belongs to each student and what is its color? Now for this one, there has to be some reasoning. You have to pay attention to the detail and the information that is there. So it's not a case where you can just read it one time and try to determine what is happening there. As well as you can guess and check. Because if it is the case that you go ahead now and you assign a cat to a person, then after reading the information, you can now check if it meets the criteria. That can also be incorporated as well. But this is something that they can't just look on and tell what the answer is. This is something that has some level of reasoning to it. This other one, Mom bought a box of candy. Mary took 5 of them. Nick took 4 of them, and 31 were given out on Halloween night. The next morning, they found 8 pieces of candy in the box. How many candy pieces were in the box when Mom bought it? Now, this is pretty straightforward. You'll have to work backwards based on what you would have had before and everyone that would have taken from the box. So we would be working backwards for that one. This one now, it is more of a pattern. Once students are able to see what is happening, 5 pizzas on Sunday, 10 pizzas on Monday, 20 pizzas on Tuesday, 40 pizzas on Wednesday. If you were supposed to take your students through this process, you will have them identifying what they notice is happening. What you can also do, if you're presenting this to your students, is to pull the questions. So you're pulling the questions and you're giving it to them and just ask them to go through the process. Don't tell them anything, just watch them and see what they do. So allowing them to explore the question. Sometimes we know what the situation is in terms of time. You don't have to put a time constraint on it. You are aware that there is a time constraint, but it does not have to be enforced. You don't have to rush them. You want them to take their time and go through the process. You want them to be able to manipulate the questions on their own. Even though you're aware that they don't have the entire day, you're not going to put that added load on them. Just give them the opportunity to explore the question and ask the right questions so they are able to come up with the answer. So this one is just finding a pattern. So what we're going to be going through now are some questions that you can take your students through. The presentation will be shared with you so you can take your students through it. What I will be doing, however, is having a conversation so you can assist your students in going through this presentation. It's not about finding the right answer. It's about how did they get to the right answer? What did they do to arrive at the answer? We don't just want them to guess, although it is multiple choice. Remember, the ability test is not the only exam that they have. So the opportunity that we can get to assist them to build the other skills that they need to build, every opportunity we get, we must make it an effort to do that. So for this one, which fraction is the smallest? No. We know that students will look at this and say 1/3. We know this. And we know that they're looking at it. They will say 1/3 because 3 is the smallest digit as the denominator that they see. So they are not looking at the fraction in its entirety. They are looking at the digit that is the denominator. And that's what they're going to use to determine which fraction. That's what some students, will use to determine what fraction is the smallest. Now, if it is the case that the child says 1/3, how will you assist the child now to determine if it is or isn't what 1/3? What will you do to assist the child in that instance? Anyone? You give your students this question. The question asks, what fraction is the smallest? The child says 1/3. What is your next step?
draw.
Pardon me?
I would draw 4 objects or 4 shapes that are the same.
You will draw, Miss Evans?
I would suggest, Lord Jesus.
Yes, man. Lord Jesus, indeed.
I
Remember,
would
you're not
suggest
doing the
that-
question,
right.
you know.
Sorry about that, Miss. I would suggest
Mhm.
right that they draw representation for each.
All right. So a suggestion could be made.
Yes.
Represent each of them so I can see what you're doing. Remember, you know, you are not doing this for them. You are taking them through the process. You are allowing them to see the mistakes that they are making. So when they get to the exam, they don't make these mistakes. So you will allow them to draw. What else do you think they would select as the smallest? Because right off the bat is just the 1/3 that comes to my mind. You are with them daily. What do you think they would have selected? Any answer outside of the correct response? And then too, we have to be careful with the content language, because when you say 1/3, there is no way for the students to picture or visualize 1/3. So we have to be careful of the language that we use. Lacey say use fraction bars, circles, or strips to demonstrate. Awesome. So you just want them to see. And if they make the mistakes, I hope you have created such an environment that if somebody come up with the wrong answer, everybody not tumble down on that one person. If it is the case that you have the opportunity to do it in smaller groups, do the presentation in smaller groups, but allow each person the opportunity to share and express what it is that they are thinking. Allow them to go through the process, not just guessing, but trying to figure out, trying for you to figure out how it is that they arrive at the answer. So that is the first one. So this one now, time is to clock as temperature is to? No. I am seeing, and let me tell you now, let me just tell you what I think students would do. Time is to clock as temperature is to cold, because some students might see T for time and C for clock. So T for temperature and C for cold. Now, how would you, if your student said temperature is too cold, how would you guide the students? Tell me what you would do to assist the students and to get them on the right path. So I'm in your class and you said time is to clock as temperature is to, and me ball out loud and clear, cold. What happens next? How do you assist me in getting on the right path?
It's a different instrument that they use.
Pardon me?
That's what Hello? Hearing me?
Mrs. Perry, I heard somebody saying hello. I don't even know if it was you. But your connection is a little.
Because it's, yes, it's very poor.
Is there anyone that is able to share based on your connection? I'm in your class. You ask this question. Time is to clock as temperature is to, and I say cold. How do you guide me to get on the right path based on where I am? Guide them to seeing a greater pattern between time and clock, instrument, and what it measures. Guide them to seeing a greater pattern between time and a greater. Miss Lee, I'm not sure if I understand the first part of your statement. Guide them to seeing a greater pattern between time and clock. Instrument. I think I prefer the last part of what you said. Instruments and what? Instrument and what it measures. So if we're talking about the time, what do you use to tell the time? So the instrument that I use to tell the time is a clock or a watch, not true? So the temperature now, what do we use to determine the temperature? And you have the conversation. So it's not about telling them, but it's about them going through the process and trying to figure out what is happening. Now, this is the one that normally pose a problem. So handspan is to length as cup is to saucer. Because I always see my grandmother with cup and saucer, right? So how do we get here? Ask students to identify the relationship between time and clock. Good. So we'll ask the students to identify the relationship between time and clock based on the questions that we would have done before. So looking at the relationship, what do we do here? Handspan is to length as cup is to, and I say saucer because that's what I see at home, cup and saucer. How do you assist me here? You have to think about the different things that the students can come up with, the different answers. You don't know which part of their brain they pick to get some of these responses, but they do go there and they get these responses. So we have to try to figure out a way to get them on the right path. Again, we are looking at the relationship. When we're doing the handspan, what are we trying to figure out? We're trying to figure out the length. So if we're looking at a cup is to what? What is the cup? What is the relationship with the cup? What can we do with the cup? What do you think? Which answer you think would be it? Handspan is to length as cup is to? You think my saucer is right? Or cup is to tea? What is the relationship here? All right, Mrs. Thompson, I realize that you're trying to say capacity. All right, and that is correct. So cup is to capacity. As I said, you don't have to take pictures of these. We will send the presentation to you, and this is the process that I want you to take the students through. If it is the case that you're not in a position to do it with the entire class, or if you are able to break the class and give it to smaller portions so you can get a better feel of where the students are, that would be great. Here we go now. Why a representation is good here is that everybody draw them star different. Everybody's star look different. So you have to have a representation here. So square is to quadrilateral as star is to. So having them see it, having them, just have an image there. Once an image is there, it's fine. So square is to quadrilateral as star is to. This one, no. This one normally poses a problem for students. What is a statistical question that could be asked about the information below? So they tell you the name of the trail. The name of the trails are Evans, Turner, and Fairway. The length of the trail in kilometers is 1.75, 2.34, and 1.69. And they're asking again, what is a statistical question that could be asked about the information below? So the first one is, what is the length of the longest trail? In what state is the shortest trail? Who uses the trails? And how are the trails used? Tell me the possible answers that your students would come up with. Sometimes it's not even so much of not knowing, but it's the fact that they're not taking the time to read through the entire response. So they might see the end of B that says the shortest trail. And they say, all right, they might ask the shortest trail. So they just choose that one. They can ask which is the shortest trail, not realizing that it is asking what state is the shortest trail. So just reinforcing to the students, the importance of paying attention to detail. That is what we will go for this one. And what question could they possibly answer based on the information that is provided here? Now for this one, you are asked, the following pattern increased by following this rule. Multiply the previous term by 3 and add 1 and add 1. So we have 5, 16, 49, 148. So they are asking, what is the next term in the sequence? No, when I was looking at this one, I was thinking to myself, do I really have to work out everything? No, this is not something that you want to tell the students. This is what you want them to notice about the responses here. So they said that for this pattern, I'm supposed to multiply the previous term by 3, and then I'm adding 1. But when I look at it, do I need to work out everything? Tell me what you notice for this one. Are you still hearing me? All right, awesome. So for this one, they say you multiply by 3 and add 1.
The judgment, not God.
Someone was trying to speak. Right, so nobody does see it, so let us leave it alone. All right, so consider the 5 terms in the following pattern. If the pattern continues in the same way, how many circles will be in the 7th term? Here, they're looking for the pattern and then just going with it. What is happening with the numbers? We have 1, 3, 6. What happens each time? Taking the students through the process and allowing them to do it. Don't make them guess. Just taking them through the process. Even if they come up with the wrong answers, ask them how they arrived at that answer and guide them along. Now for this one, there are different ways of coming up with this one. So which domino comes next in the sequence? Now, when I was looking at it, I was looking at, get my cursor. All right, tell me what you notice about this. Which domino will come next and why you think that domino will come next? Anyone? A, all right, why A? Someone said A, Miss Lee said A. Can anyone justify why you think she said A? Would anyone like to share why they think Miss Lee chose A?
Each time you go around, you add 1, then you subtract 1.
You sounded muffled just now. I couldn't hear you clearly.
Can you hear me? hearing me now, miss?
Yes, just a little bit clearer.
Each time you go along, you add one, then you subtract one.
Adding one where? Where am I adding one? For the number at the top of the domino or for the number at the bottom?
The numbers are counting down.
Which ones are counting down?
The
You
top
have to be
one.
specific.
All right. First, each one that's all right. The 6 and 5 counting down, and 4.
But I have one. I have 6, then I have
No,
1, then I
no.
have.
In the second line now, it matters with the one that come next. Because that one now is counting up. So it's from one counting up and one counting down.
I'm confused now.
All right, listen. All right, this no.
Wait, then let me get my pen so I can follow what you're saying. Go ahead now. So I'm here.
Right, so that's a counting down. We have 5, 4.
So
The big
so you
number.
say I get the big number. So I go 5,
Yes.
4, but I skip these.
Yes, but when I look at the pattern, the second line now, I realize now where the smaller numbers are, it's counting. The bottom.
So here, so
Yes.
the red ones I'm counting down, and
Right,
for
and
this purple one now,
right.
I'm counting up. So for this next one, the number should be what?
3.
3.
At
So
the
all
top.
right.
Yes.
1.
And the bottom now,
Don't say
four.
anything about me domino. And the bottom now, what is happening at the bottom now? Anyone else wants to assist? What is happening at the bottom?
It remains. I don't know.
It remains. No, sir.
So you skip counting.
They're skip counting. But where? How? Tell me how.
You say 2 and you jump over 3, jump over 4.
So am I increasing or am I decreasing?
Increasing.
So I'm going 2, 3, then I go 4. So this is one you enough for this then.
No.
So
Okay.
all right. So the next one now.
So that means
Here, so now, what am I doing here?
Counting down.
All right, so I have 6, then 5. So what should come next?
4.
All right. So we're looking for that. You see the process that we just went through? That is what I want the students to see. So it's not about guessing. It's understanding what is happening and trying to figure out what the pattern is or what do you notice in order to get the answer. So our answer here would be A. 3, 4. All right, this one is pretty straightforward. It's just paying attention to the detail. View the select the view of the figure from the given side based on what they are seeing. So just give them the time to observe what they notice. This one now might take a little bit more time. Why? Fraction beat them bad. Rather worse, decimal. So it's for them to understand what it is that's happening here, which fraction and decimal represents the number of pictures that are bells and paying attention to what is being asked here. So while we have two options that has the fraction correct, which is 3/4, the decimals are different. So it's for the students now to understand or to try to figure out which one is correct. And how do you know that it is correct based on what is presented to them? So we'll have to take the students through this process. So we talk about 3/4. And I'm sure they read the question too, because they might see the one socks out and think that is the one that they're talking about and not paying attention to the bells. So the emphasis here is just allowing the students to go through the process and paying attention to detail in the process. This one might take some time, but manipulatives can be used to assist. Or they can draw some little sticks or circles or whatever it is. So Grandma Ivy decided to give her grandchildren some fruits. In her bag, there is an equal number of apples, mangoes, and plums. How many fruits could be in Grandma Ivy's bag? Now here, we ask them, how would we determine this? What would we need to know? When they say equal number, how are we going to determine which is which? What information was given? How do I use the information that is given? So what strategy you think we could use here based on what is being asked? Could we use the method of elimination based on what is being asked? So you allow the students to go through the process, to look at the responses. You can guess and check. You can have them going through as well to see what could work, why it wouldn't work. Just take them through the process. So for 16, could 16 be the answer? If yes, why? If no, why? Allow them to express how it is that they go through the process of eliminating options. What do they do? Just to ensure that they are on. Go ahead.
For a question like this, I would tell my students to look out for some key things. And in this particular question, the key thing that they would need to be looking for is equal number of the number of fruits. So when they're looking for the equal number, so it must be a number that would be able to divide equally by the amount of fruits that are present.
And how many fruits
And how many
are
fruits?
we have?
Right. In this case, there are 3 fruits. And so when they are eliminating now, they need to find a number that is divisible by 3.
All right. So asking the right questions and taking them through the process of it all. That's what we want. All right. So for this other one now, we don't have a far way to go. No worry on yourself. We're not going to be here for the entire morning. This one, the tables and chairs in a classroom are arranged in a sequence of patterns. How many people can be seated? If 10 tables, lined up end to end. No, even though you might not have the table, if you have a student that is not able to readily see what is happening, you see the little, you can use dominoes. Dominoes can be used. We put them edge to edge and we put little stones around them just to create a visual representation of what is happening. Not everyone will get the algorithm aspect of it, but it's the process that you take them through. You don't even have to do that. Allow them to draw it. Allow them to show, have a representation of what is happening and take you through the process. Now, some students, well, or you might find a few students that will be able to tell you or identify the pattern. That is fine. But if a student is not able to and they need to go all the way, that is also fine. But allow them to take. No, let me be careful. Allow them to go through the process. Allow them to go through the process. Try not to tell them, but guide them with the questions that you're asking. So as best as possible, just ask them what it is that they're thinking, how it is that they can approach the question. What would you do? Is there any way that we can represent for us to have a better understanding of what is happening? Then you can take them through the process. This one comes with a visual. So you can take them through the process if you like, for them to see what is happening. And the pattern is there as well. But you just want them to go through the process for themselves, for them to understand what is happening before you give them the answer. Now this one is a challenge, and I want someone to explain to me how you would take your students through this one. Mr. Blake wants to move the boxes to his storage room. if he can only move 3 boxes at a time, how many trips would Mr. Blake need to take? So here are the boxes. These are all the boxes that Mr. Blake has in his storage room. What is the first thing that you need to know before you can determine the number of trips that he'll need to take? What is the first thing that you'll need to find out? Before you can,
Are there?
how many boxes are there?
Yeah,
Can you just look at it and tell how many boxes are there?
too big, Miss. We can't.
Too big, you can't see it. All right, I need somebody to tell me how many boxes and how you determine the number of boxes. I say a warehouse setting this, you know. So box on top of box on top of box. So how are you going to determine, because we can't move them box here, you know, we don't have access to these box. Or you could have access to these box. Ask the students if you have the little interlocking cubes, ask them to show you a representation. If them are come up with the wrong answers, ask them to show you a representation or to create a replica of the boxes that are here. Once they create the replica, what you want them to see is that the box on the top here, so not just a float in a thin air, so, but they are actually boxes below. So once you have the students creating a replica of what they are seeing here, it will better assist them in figuring out the number of boxes. For students that are, for schools that don't have the facilities or have the manipulative, in order to demonstrate this, you just have to go reason it out or pack something. You must can pack some things. Find something to stack on top of each other for the students to see what is happening here. So if you are able to, and you have interlocking cubes and the students are not getting it, ask them or ask each group to represent what it is that they are seeing here. Because what we have here, we have two boxes here. So this, we have 2 here, so. How many boxes do we have here? Anyone? How many boxes we have here? So we have 2 on this side. And we have 2 on this side. How many boxes we have here? We have 4 here, so. We have another 4 here, so. So how many boxes do we have here for this tall piece? Anyone? How many boxes do we have here to stack this high?
It seems like it's 3. And then it's 3 times 4. I guess it's 12, I assume.
So it would be 12. So we have 12 boxes there. So it's 12 plus 12, which gives us the 24. And then they would now have to decide now how many trips they'll have to make. You can still even use the manipulatives for them to figure it out for themselves. Remember, the aim is not to tell them what it is, but to allow them to go through the process and arrive at the answers for themselves. John had 15 marbles. He gave all but 6 to Jack. How many marbles does John have now? John had 15 marbles. He gave all but 6 to Jack. How many marbles does John have now? No, for this question, it's paying attention to detail. Most of the students will see this and say, all right, 15 and Mrs. 6. So I have 15 and I'm going to take 6 from it. So I am going to have 9 left. So it is 9. Not paying attention to what was stated in the question. John had 15 marbles. He gave all but 6 to Jack. How many marbles does John have now? He have 6 because he gave all but 6. That one is just a throw in. Now, 50 sweets were shared between John and Mark in the ratio of 1 to 4 respectively. What was Mark's share? Again, the process. How do you arrive at the answer? What did you do to get to the answer? If they get the answer correct, how did you arrive at that answer? What did you do? It's all about trying to figure out where they are to get them to a place that they are comfortable or they understand what it is that they are doing. This one, guess and check as well. What two numbers have a product of 48? And when the larger number is divided by the smaller, a quotient of 3. Now, they have to be comfortable with the terms as well. So they need to understand what each means and be able to manipulate what is there. So it's not about the answer, but taking them through the process. And that brings us to the end of our session. I will be sending the presentation to you. When you get the presentation, I'm going to ask that you take the students through the process that you would have gone through. Just allow them to share, allow them to manipulate, allow them to draw their diagrams. Just allow them to go through the process as best as possible so they are able to understand what it is that they're doing, especially for the fraction. I know when students see the fraction based on the language, the content language that is used in some instances, the students don't fully understand because they say 1/3. In some instances, they say 1/3. So when you're asking about the smallest fraction, them say 3. Of course, that is going to be the smallest fraction because that is the smallest digit. Not understanding how it works and what needs to happen in order for you to determine what the smallest fraction is. So just take them through the process. I beg of you. Yes, Mrs. Lopez? Mrs. Brown Lopez, your hand is raised.
Yes.
No, man.
Yes, Miss,
Type
I
it.
came
Oh,
email or
because
an email. Huh?
your connection was so poor. You sounded so robotic before. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm so sorry. You hear me now?
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you better now.
Okay, so I'm saying I came in late. In order for me to get the presentation, I'm trying to find out if I need to send my email or what should I do?
We will be sending it to the school. So we
Okay.
will send the email to the school. So just check. You can check by the latest 1 o'clock today, and you will have the presentation. So if you just go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen to complete the evaluation, we will have a student session on Thursday based on the connection issues.
Miss Edwards, Friday.
Oh, sorry, next week Friday, which is the 14th of February, we'll be having a student session. We will also be sharing that presentation as well. So you can, if you are not in a position to,
What
I think
time
it's
on
I think
Friday?
it's from 10 to 12. If it is the case that the connection issue is not as strong and you are having issues and the students will have issues participating, the presentation will be shared as well for you to take the students through the process, you know, on a one-on-one basis. So that will be shared as well. So that will be next week, Thursday from 10 to 12 as well. Same time as we had next week, Friday. Sorry, I don't know why I keep on saying Thursday. Next week, Friday, the 14th of February, we will be having the student session. I will ask of you to scan the QR code above and complete the survey for me. The other thing too, if you have not yet written your name and the school that you're presenting in the chat, please feel free to go ahead and do so. We will need it for registration purposes. Again, scan the QR code for the evaluation. And if there are no other questions, this is where we will close off for this morning session. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will take the students through the presentation the way we would have done it today and allow them to just figure things out for themselves. Try as best as possible not to tell them. I know sometimes you will be tempted to tell them based on what it is that they're doing, but we are trying as best as possible to be facilitators. So allow them to just go through the process and understand what it is that they're doing. Allow them to find meaning in what it is that they're doing. So if you have the manipulatives and you can incorporate them, please free to have them doing the representation or having a mock-up of what some of the questions that are there. Use counters, whatever they are that you can have, whatever resources you have that can be used, please feel free to go ahead and do so. Go ahead.